My name is Kristen Trexler.
And I'm Fernanda Agrin, reporting for FYEC Channel 4.
Tonight's story, early modern parents. Did they love their children?
Of course they love their children. What parents wouldn't?
Well, that depends on what your definition of love is. I think that if parents couldn't give their children what they wanted, then how could they have loved them?
Well, during the early modern period, parents demonstrated their affection through protecting their children. Love was about keeping them alive.
But how could parents love their children if they didn't give them everything that they wanted?
You know, maybe we should hear what our viewers have to think. Let's go to Catherine Percone, who's out in the field.
Hi, I'm Catherine Percone, reporting live from Randolph-Macon College campus. Let's see if we can find a couple of students to give us some information on this topic. This is Kari and this is Jessica, and they have nicely volunteered to answer some questions that we have on this topic. So, do you guys think that early modern parents loved their children?
I don't think so. I think they were too focused on work to be focused on their children.
Of course they did. What mother wouldn't love their child?
The mothers had no other option but to be around their children because fathers were not seen within the domestic sphere. Taking care of children was considered a natural responsibility for women. Historical texts reveal that fathers were often not even present at the child's birth. They only showed up when the mother or the child was dying.
You know, fathers may not have been at birthing events or been involved in any part of the domestic sphere, but this was because early modern parents worked around the clock to provide things like food, to even providing their kids with skills they could utilize in the future.
Yes, they provided the basics, but there was no future without marriage, which required a dowry. Most parents could only provide one dowry for their firstborn child, and the rest were left to fend for themselves.
Well, let's go back to our viewers to hear what they have to say about the matter.
Do you think there's a correlation between the expression of love and materialistic goods?
Yes, history informs us that the upper classes provided their children with the opportunity to travel, receive an education, were always able to provide a dowry. They had wonderful clothing and precious jewels, had ample amounts of food, and even had opportunities to dabble in the fine arts.
It may sound great, but you can't spoil a dead kid. It's wonderful that the upper class were able to give their children all these things, but keeping them alive was top priority. It didn't necessarily matter what class early modern family were from. Love was expressed by providing their children with things that would keep them alive.
While this discussion had some powerful insight and valid arguments, let's ask a historian how she would answer the question. Do you think that early modern parents loved their children?
I think that we have evidence that they did, although certainly historians have been debating this issue for a long time, and there are some on both sides of the spectrum. Personally, I'm inclined to argue that they did. We have evidence, like for example, the poetry of Ben Jonson. He writes in a very emotional way about the death of his son. He wonders if somehow his own personal flaws, his own sins, are what has caused God to take his son away from him. That indicates to me that emotion and love definitely played a part. I think it's hard for us to imagine, though, because mortality rates are so high. We don't have any kind of, as sort of first worlders, we don't have any kind of experience of the kind of devastation that parents went through on a regular basis. So we don't have anything that we can kind of apply to it. It's hard to understand how they would have coped with that level of grief on a consistent basis, but I think we have to assume that they did.
Okay. Do you think there's a correlation between the expression of love and material goods?
I think that there is a correlation between the expression of love as contemporary Americans think of it and material goods. Throughout the 19th century and into the 20th century, there's this kind of golden age of childhood, and you've got toys, and you've got the idea of nurseries and the idea of books, especially for children. That's not an early modern phenomenon. Early modern children would have had to make do, those who were literate at any rate, would have had to make do with their parents' books and sort of picked through them for the exciting parts. There aren't any pieces of fiction stories just for children. That doesn't mean, though, that there's no love. It just means that there aren't the signs that we would look for as 21st century modern Americans.
With all this information taken into account, it appears that early modern parents loved their children, but not in the same way that parents love their children today. This is Catherine Percone reporting live from FYEC Channel 4. Back to you in the studio.
Thanks, Catherine. That certainly leaves us with some things to think about.
After the break, the Duchess of Malfi. Should women have power?